Yo, what do they call me? They call me Devin Zoolander. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Yeah, they call me Devin Zoolander. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I look good on camera. You know I look good on camera. Yo, what's up? It's your homie, Devin Zoolander, coming all the way live from my domicile. And today is a very special day because I have the honor of interviewing a person that I've admired for quite some time, for a few years now. Someone who is obviously highly intelligent, someone who is successful and who is still humble at the same time, and someone that is just an inspiring person. Please put your hands together for Gabrielle Lee.
Well, thank you. That was a pretty nice introduction.
Oh, well, thanks. You know, I aim to please, so I'm glad that I could make you feel at home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So first of all, I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself. So where you're from, where you went to school, and what your current job is.
Sure. So I am Gabrielle Lee, and I'm an attorney. I'm a federal public defender. I grew up here in Pittsburgh. I grew up in West Mifflin, so the Kennywood area for anyone who's not familiar with West Mifflin. I graduated from West Mifflin High School and went to Penn State University. Came back from Penn State, and then I went to Pitt Law School. So I haven't gone far out of Pennsylvania is essentially what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about because I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I went to Cheney University for undergrad. That's where I met Chris Carter at. And then, and then I came out here for grad school at Pitt in 2012, earned my Master's of Public and International Affairs. And even though I felt like this was supposed to be a 2-year relationship, it has grown into a 12-year, I was about to say 14, 12-year relationship.
So are you a Steelers fan yet?
Not yet. I mean, so the way I look at it is like I respect the Steelers. Okay. Like I know that y'all are great and everything, okay, but
I'll take that.
When you're born and raised in a city where the culture is like you have rabid fans as well, not as rabid as Steelers fans, and it probably has something to do with you guys usually win more. But I think for us,
you said it, not me.
I mean, hey, no, it's okay. I mean, we won more recently, but it's all good though. It is what it is. But for me though, like growing up in that culture and just becoming a diehard fan, my dad, and also because for me, it's more than just the team itself. It's like, to me, it's more about the name at the front of Philadelphia Eagles than the Eagles itself. It's about Philadelphia Eagles. To me, oh, you mean like Will Smith? Oh, you mean like Jill Scott, Boys to Men, The Roots. So for me, it's more of the connection to the whole city as opposed to me just loving the football team so much because sometimes they lose and it's really hard to love them.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, but, you know, I got appreciation for the Steelers. I like Mike Tomlin a lot. He's really cool. Yeah, he's really dope. You said that you're a federal attorney?
Yes, I'm a federal public defender.
Federal public defender. Okay, before we go any further, because legal terms, they always kind of trip me up. So, public defender, lawyer, attorney. It's kind of like Hispanic, Latino. You know, it's like, can you please break it down?
So there's no difference between lawyer and attorney. We use it interchangeably. But public defender, I pretty much represent people who can't afford counsel, who've been charged with a federal crime in federal court. So kind of like you see on your typical Law and Order, but it's at the federal level.
Okay. That's a pretty good explanation. I got it. All right. Well, that's really cool. So there are different types of law. I believe there's like entertainment law and corporate law and just all kinds of different law. What made you go into public defense?
Sure. So I actually started out as a commercial litigator, and that's kind of what most people think of with corporate law. You know, you represent the big companies, and, you know, it was nice. It pays well. A lot better than public interest work. But, I mean, I knew I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney, you know, pretty much as long as I've known I wanted to be a lawyer.
Right.
This is the interesting work. This is, you know, the exciting work. This is the work where you're actually helping people. And I've just known for, you know, I don't know, at least since I started law school or I did my first internship, this is what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you're doing that because I think a lot of times those of us that are fortunate enough to not only graduate from college, but to also get advanced degrees or Juris Doctorates in your case, Like we want to take our skills and kind of like LeBron, how he said, I'm gonna take my talents to Miami or South Beach, whatever he said when he made the announcement. And just for you to be able to kind of pour back into the community, and not necessarily specific to black people, because you represent a lot of different people as a federal public defender, but just the community that really needs your resources but can't afford them. I think that that's an honorable thing.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I do. I love the work, and it's also nice to help, to work with people in my community.
Right, definitely. Well, thank you very much for breaking that down. I think I have a much better understanding of what it is that you do, because at first I was just like, I don't get it. All right, but let's do something fun real quick. I've tried this out a couple times, so I want to play a game with you.
Okay.
All right, so 2 truths and a lie.
2 truths and a lie. Okay.
Yeah, so original.
All right. First one is I have 2 German Shepherds. Second one is I've been practicing law for 7 years. Third one is I have jumped off of a 30-foot cliff.
I think the lie is that you have 2 German Shepherds.
Close. I have 2 German Shepherds, one named Scar and one named Lilo.
Gosh.
The lie is that I've been practicing for 7 years. I've only been practicing for 5.
Oh, that was good. Wow. He jumped off a 30-foot cliff?
Yeah, in Jamaica. Into water.
Of course. You're
Yeah.
still here. Right. Well, what was that like?
I was really excited to do it, and the good thing about it is when you get up there, they don't let you think about it, because if you pause, they'll tell you to go.
Yeah.
If I had time to think about it and looked over that edge, I may not have done it. But like, you get up there and you just jump, and it was fun. I did it a few times. It was so much fun.
What is a myth about law school that many people think is true?
I think a myth is that you will be rich when you graduate law school. People think of lawyers, people think of big money, they think of maybe the show Suits and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's just not reality. And the advice that I give people who say they want to go to law school is I say, go to law school if you're not going to pay for it, or if you're not going to pay a lot for it. When I went to school, tuition was $30-something thousand a year. And so it's 3 years, so you're paying over $100,000, and that's not including undergrad. In a lot of the jobs when you come out, there are jobs that start at $30,000, there are jobs that start at $40,000, and there are also the really nice jobs that will start you at $140,000. And there's just not that much in between. So if you go to school and you come out making less than what you paid in 1 year tuition, it's just not worth it. So I think the myth that you're definitely going to come out and get a job, you're definitely going to come out making 6 figures, it's a myth.
Right. Well, I'm glad you said that, because I remember, I can't tell you how many times my mom will always remind me, ever since I was a little kid, she'll be like, Dev, like because it's funny, because when I was younger, she had a little bit more bass in her voice, but now that she knows that I'm grown and that sometimes we can get into arguments, then she proceeds with a little bit more caution. So she'll be like, Dev, so I was thinking, you should go to law school. Like, because parents, they just make it seem so easy. They just be like, yo, you should go to law school. You should go to medical school.
Yeah.
You should become an accountant. And I just be sitting there like, I don't know. So she always wanted me to do that. But I think it was more so based on the fact that I end up arguing all the time.
Yeah.
Even though we know there's more to law than just liking to argue. But I don't know. That's what she said. But I'm glad that you broke that down. The whole conversation around representing people that ethically might present a conflict of interest because of the crime that they're being charged with, in addition to whether or not you believe that they're telling the truth, and still representing them with all that you got, even though there's some things about the person or the particular case that make you feel uncomfortable.
Sure. So, I represent guilty people sometimes. And, I don't even want to, sometimes it's very frequent. And I didn't take this job to only represent innocent people, because I wouldn't be a public defender if I did. And, you hear about all of these bad situations and I'm not exactly, I don't know. There isn't a certain type of crime or a certain type of person that I don't think I can represent. In federal court, we don't deal with very many murders or any, we don't deal with very many rapes. It's a lot of it's guns, drugs, there's child pornography. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some, off cases, but, it's my goal for my clients to get the best representation possible. And once you're in this system and you see how, the consequences, how severe they can be, especially in the federal system, it's my goal to get my client the best result. So even if my client did sell drugs, it doesn't mean that he needs to spend 20 years in prison.
Right.
Or it doesn't mean he should spend his life in prison. And the way that the statutes are set up, the way the courts are set up, the way that, our system is set up, and the systemic racism, especially here in our city, that kind of results in these really high sentences and these guidelines that they're facing, it's my goal to get the best result possible. It may not be a not guilty result. I mean, most cases don't even go to trial. I just want my client to have a fair experience, in the justice system.
It's weird because I think sometimes for us that are not practicing law, it can seem more complicated than it really is. Whereas for you, you signed up to be a federal public defender. You represent all kinds of different people, and your goal is just to give them the best representation possible, even if that doesn't result in a not guilty verdict. So for us, it seems complicated, but for you, it seems like after doing it for 5 years, you know what it is, and it's not that complicated to you.
So I actually take the opposite approach. I think for outsiders, they look at it, it's so simple. Like,
Oh,
this
okay,
person is a criminal. They committed a crime. They should go to jail.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
When I see it as a person. Like, oh, this is my client, so-and-so. Like, his mom's name is Janet. Like, he grew up in this neighborhood, and he experienced this trauma. He has so many prior convictions because he couldn't afford food when he was a kid, so he started selling drugs. Like, I see so many different things other than what's on this indictment. Yes, he's accused of selling drugs. He's this, person with all this criminal history. And so I see it as a much more complicated thing.
Okay.
How did my client get here? Why is he here? How can we help him to move forward? And I feel like a lot of people on the outside see this person like, oh, big time, big bad drug dealer.
Yeah. And you become kind of like a number in a computer. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. That now that you say it that way, that makes sense. That you actually see all of the complexities of the case and the person that you're representing, whereas the people on the outside are more like lock them up, and that definitely plays a part when we're dealing with things like Antoine Rose, or if it's Leon Ford or Jordan Miles, or you could just go on and on. But with these cases that seem to happen far too often in our city in particular, like, yeah, there's an emotional reaction to these things.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for breaking it down. I feel you now. I skipped over a question, but I got to get back to it. So, Claire Huxtable, Maxine Shaw, and Joan Clayton are characters that portrayed lawyers on classic black sitcoms. How did seeing these black women practicing law impact your decision to become a lawyer, if at all?
I don't think they did, because
I feel that.
I don't think I realized that Claire Huxtable was a lawyer until I was older.
That makes sense.
And I don't think, at the young age when I was watching some of these shows that I even thought about being a lawyer.
Got you.
I think I've just been more influenced by real life and like seeing the things that go on around me, just because, I watch crappy TV. I'll admit that. Things that I watch do not influence me. I watch 90 Day Fiancé. That's the type of TV that I watch.
I got you. Well, I appreciate that, and I could recognize that. I know for me, even though I never practiced law or anything like that, like, I used to see them, and it was just always really cool to see them go to court. And actually, I would say, although Joan, they didn't really show her in court too much. Like, she was more of like, I don't know what kind of law you would call it, but it was more like the corporate thing. Mm-hmm. You saw her in her office more than you saw her in the actual courtroom. But with Maxine and with Claire, they were in the courtroom. Like, it's like they in the streets.
And that's the thing. I have no memories of these scenes at all. And I don't know why. I think it's, maybe I was just more focused on like Rudy and like the funny things in the show, but I have no memory of that.
Yeah.
But like, now that I'm older and now that, I am practicing, I think of like how important it is to, have this representation in TV. Because it's one of the things we see in our community. When I'm graduating high school and the people around me and people are talking about what are you going to do, you don't really know because, all you know is what you see around you. Yeah. I had one cousin who's a lawyer, and my dad would tell me over and over, in high school, you're going to be a lawyer just like your cousin Yana. I had never met this cousin, ever.
Wow.
I had no idea who she was. but I knew her name just from my dad saying over and over, "You're going to be a lawyer just like your cousin Yana." And I met her when I started law school. So, the options that you think you have. I mean, my dad's a plumber, my mom's a secretary. My dad would kill me if I told him I was going to go to school to be a plumber.
Right. Yeah.
But, you don't, just the concept of being a lawyer, just like the concept of being a doctor, like it's just foreign to you. So it is nice to just see that representation, to see, oh, there are women out there who are doing it. There are Black women who are out there doing it.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, the good thing is that, like, even though you might not have fully understood what you were watching and you were more about the jokes, which makes sense because, those were some iconic, funny shows. Like, I think it's in some indirect way, even though it didn't directly influence you, I think just having that around on top of you, just having a curiosity about law and just about just really seeking justice, and no matter how bad something looks, giving people the opportunity to have a fair and just process. Because if any of us get accused, charged with doing something, then we would hope that all of the facts would be represented fairly, and that things like character assassinations, which is another thing I want to get into, because with the advancement of social media and the way that social media can sway the court of public opinion, I would imagine that could present some challenges in really high profile cases where you're trying your best to present the full character of the person that you're representing. However, if there's X amount of negative press about this person, then at some point the jurors, they can be like, oh yeah, I'm not going to talk about this at home. No, I'm not going to pay attention to any social media, but they still hear things.
Oh yeah. I mean, social media is good and bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I have cases, you go on social media, you find so many helpful tidbits. People always talk and people post things they shouldn't on social media. But there's usually more bad associated with it. For example, they always show this video during your training about a client who's charged with guns and drugs, and he, on his Facebook, he has a music video toting guns and drugs. That's the example that they use. That's it's funny, but it's also reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you have the news and these articles are being shared, I mean, you never see Jim Johnson, father of 3, charged with such and such. It's former felon, or dude from such and such area shot 3 people. So it's never personifying our clients or putting them in any type of realistic light, or showing anything other than the worst, and things that just capture people's attention. Most people aren't going to click on an article that say, Bob Johnson, father of 3, had a bad weekend and, bad things happen.
Right.
But they're going to click on an article saying, felon shoots this person, and, so they go for headlines, things that capture people's attention, and unfortunately, it usually reflects negatively on clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and that wasn't in our list of questions, but it just came to me just because I'm thinking about what that does to the client, and in talking to you, what I'm learning more about is like that human connection that you develop with the client. And I think also another thing I was curious about is, how do you maintain professional boundaries between you and a client that you're working with? And it's almost like if I was interviewing you for a story and we're spending a lot of time together, and my goal is to represent you in the best light, but eventually, like, my better judgment could get clouded if there aren't parameters set. So how do you set those boundaries?
Yeah, so I think the relationship you form, just like with anyone, it's going to be different with every client. I try not to give my cell phone out, as there are always exceptions. Like if there are emergencies I know may come up over the weekend, because there are other ways to get in contact with me. But you also don't want to be at your family picnic on a Saturday taking calls that aren't necessarily urgent, or don't need responses at the time.
Right.
But you're right. When you sit down and talk to these people over and over, you form friendships and professional relationships, and they start to learn a little bit about me. Because it's also helpful for getting them to open up, because I'm not going to sit there and meet with them and say, okay, tell me everything about your life. Tell me everything you did. I want your girlfriend's number, your mom's number. I want this, and that. But you have no idea who I am. And trust building is one of the most important things that I do.